D-Lo 404 Boxing. All right, y'all. I'm going to talk to y'all real quick about this show I was watching on ESPN Plus. It's about a 30-minute show called State of Boxing. This is my first time catching. I may go back and look and see if there are any other episodes that I haven't watched. But it's Tim Bradley, Bernardo Sudo, and Mark Kriegel. And basically the discussion went toward talking about the pound for pound list. They showed the pound for pound list the ESPN has. I yawned because it's a silly list, but it's their list, whatever. But the discussion turned to Tank Davis, and Tim Bradley was the lightning rod in the conversation. Basically, he was he was basically speaking on his disdain for Tank Davis not being on the list. And he, talked about Tank Davis, talked about how, Tank Davis is an exciting fighter, explosive fighter. He talked about his record. I think it's 24-0 with 23 KOs. He talked about some of his big wins. Talked about the, big win over Leo, who's a 3-division champion. He talked about win over Pedraza, who's a 2-division champion. Talked about him going up in weight to 140 to fight Barrios, who was a WBA regular champion, but a threat nonetheless, and a guy who, offered a lot of resistance, and Tank went up and got the knockout. And basically, but Bernardo Suno was kind of, he was kind of like middle of the road in this discussion. And but man, when I tell you that Mark Kriegel was defending Tank Davis not being on the list like he was defending somebody who was about to go to death row. This man was basically making every argument he could for why Tank Davis shouldn't be on the list. And every time Tim Bradley shot down one thing, he would create another argument. And it basically just speaks to why that pound for pound list that ESPN puts out is so ridiculous. I've heard it stated once or more than once that ESPN goes out of their way to try not to put too many black fighters on that pound for pound list. And which is kind of strange when you think about how saturated the sport of boxing is with black fighters. But it almost, this argument that they had, this discussion about Tank not being on the list, it almost validates that claim. Some of the arguments that Mark Kriegel was making about Tank not being on the list was stuff like, Tank went up and fought for a regular title instead of fighting for a real title. And don't get me wrong, y'all have heard me complain about the comments that Ellaby made about Tank shouldn't have to fight, or basically like they're not going to give any interest in the Taylor fight because Taylor didn't bring anything to the table, which I thought was complete hogwash. I couldn't agree with that whatsoever. But my point is that the argument that Tank shouldn't be on the pound for pound list because he fought for a regular title at 140 and not fighting for the real titles, the legit titles at 140 is asinine. Especially when you got Canelo sitting number one on your pound for pound list, and he was on your pound for pound list and praised and applauded for going up to 168, taking that regular title off of that boy Fielding. And the crazy thing about what Canelo did when he went and fought Fielding for that title, Callum Smith was there as the WBA Super Champion, and he had already knocked out Rocky Fielding. Yet Canelo went and fought Rocky Fielding instead of Callum Smith at the time. I don't care what he's done since then, but at that time, that was the belt that he went up to win and to lay the claim that he was matching Henry Armstrong as a 3-division champion simultaneously. Same claim that they're trying to bestow upon Tank that I don't necessarily agree with there either, but since y'all recognized it for Canelo, it's only fair to recognize it for Tank. But to me, neither one of them are matching what Armstrong did, because at that time there was only one belt. and basically you were the man in each of those divisions if you were the champion. So it pales in comparison. But that's not the point of this discussion, this video. But my point is that the double standards are blatant and obvious. They don't even try to hide this stuff anymore. They don't try to cover it up. They just basically just come out and say, yeah, we know this didn't apply to this person, but yeah, it's gonna apply to Tank. Because Tank doesn't Tank doesn't get the exception that we gave to these other fighters. And this man went out of his way to shoot Tank's resume down with everything he had. And made every argument in the world. Even some of the stuff he's talking about is stuff that Tank couldn't have done yet. And saying that, well, if he needs to do this, if he does that, then we can consider him for the pound for pound list. In my opinion, if Tank does make the pound for pound list, Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford will probably drop off. I'm not sure who else black is on that list. And I hate to even take the discussion there, but I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend something is something that it isn't. You know what I'm saying? It basically is what it is at this point. And the other thing is, there's another blaring omission from the pound for pound list, and that's Jermell Charlo. So if you look at what Jermell Charlo has done at 154 pounds, even avenging the one loss on his record that a lot of people feel like, was a robbery, which I don't. I felt like he lost the fight, but it was a close fight. The fact that he's not on the list also, to me, it's an eyesore when you look at any pound for pound list that has guys like Estrada on it, has guys like Lomachenko on it, has guys like Tyson Fury on it. That just, and the list in a way, get serious. So, to me, I just find it funny, sad, and bizarre all at the same time that Mark Kragel worked tirelessly stating his argument for why Tank Davis should be on the pound for pound list, but has no problem with all these guys sitting on the pound for pound list that could be, if he were to try, he could shoot them down for being on the pound for pound list without even trying. But he never said anything about any of those guys being on the pound for pound list. And how Tank Davis, my thing is, if you really want to sit there and make the argument for Tank Davis being on the list, compare him to the guys that are on the list. That's what I wish Tim Bradley would have done. Of course, like I said, it's a 30-minute segment. I probably had about 12 minutes left in it, maybe 8 minutes or so. So maybe Tim does get to that. But I'm going to leave it at that. That's all I got to say on the subject. D-Lo 404 Boxer. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.